game live stream. Tottenham today are of course taking on Middlesbrough at the Riverside in the third round of the FA Cup. We're just waiting for the official team news to actually come out, and it might be here now. No, not yet. It's 1 o'clock and the game's kicking off at 1 minute past 2. So I imagine in the next couple of minutes we will get that team news from Tottenham. We're also going to be having a look at some of the stats ahead of this game. Kind of the recent form between the two teams. Haven't played them since 2017 when they were last in the Premier League. But we're going to be going through that, maybe talking a bit of transfers. I've seen a few people asking about Christian Eriksen already. But now here is the team news out actually. So that's the first thing we're going to run through. So it's a very, very strong team. And honestly, I'm really surprised by it. It's an extremely strong team. It looks like maybe a 3 or a 5 at the back. Gazzaniga is starting in goals. We have Serge Aurier probably in that right wing back role. 3 centre backs, judging by how the team is laid out. We have Dyer, Alderweireld, and Vertonghen. Sessegnon playing in the left wing back role, and then we have Harry Winks playing in midfield with Christian Eriksen. And I assume then it's going to be Lucas, maybe Lucas and Dele behind Son, but it could be Lucas and Son on the wings with Dele up front. But a really strong team there, and one that I'm happy to see. I see Jay Spurs there talking about no youth, but as you say, we're desperate to win. It is a full strength side. We need a trophy. That's kind of why we brought Mourinho in, I suppose, to be the man to get those trophies for us. And he's really gone all out for this one. A really strong team. Looking at the bench as well, we have Lamela, Lo Celso, Sanchez, but a few young players in there as well. Jaffa Tanganga, Oliver Skip, and Troy Parrott, all making it on the bench. So just run through that again. The starting 11. Paulo Gazzaniga is starting in goals. It's a back 3 or a back 5 of Aurier, Dyer, Alderweireld, Vertonghen and Sessegnon. Then we've Harry Winks and Christian Eriksen playing in midfield with a trio up front. I imagine they'll be rotating quite a bit. We've Lucas, Dele Alli and Heung-min Son as well. So it's really good to see Jose Mourinho gone all out for this. We had quite a bit with Mauricio Pochettino. We were getting kind of frustrated at the fact that he didn't seem to prioritise these trophies, but it is kind of a traditional thing over in Argentina and even in Spain, where Pochettino started his managerial career. The domestic trophies were never a big thing, but Mourinho, who he has spent quite a bit of time in England with United and Chelsea and has won a lot of trophies, you can see already that this is important to him. And top 4 would be a struggle this year. Whether or not we're going to get it, it's anybody's guess, to be honest, because it's just how consistent those teams around the top 4 actually are. But look, it's a really good start. It's by no means is that the game won already because of the starting 11. We've been so poor. We've, of course, drawing with Norwich, losing to Southampton. We can't take anything for granted at the moment. And as I'll run through in a second, Middlesbrough's latest form has been absolutely sensational. They've been doing really well down in the Championship, so we can't take anything for granted at all. And just have a quick look actually at the Middlesbrough starting 11 to see if there's anything there anything of note. I'm sure they'd be quite surprised really by the starting 11 that Tottenham have gone with. They've just retweeted our 11 there. To be honest, it looks a bit like a rotated team from them. I don't know a lot about their starting 11, but they have players like Ashley Fletcher, who actually scored a fantastic goal at the weekend for them. Paddy McNair, who would have played in the Premier League with United, and Sunderland, players like Adam Clayton in midfield and Howson as well, who do have Premier League experience, but it's not the strongest team. There's a lot of players there that we wouldn't really recognise. But again, it's not done yet, and it's encouraging that we have gone with such a strong starting 11, but there's still a lot of work to do. We see a few people as well at the start actually asking about Christian Eriksen and whether or not he'd be signing a new contract. It's kind of a hard one to look at in any sort of a positive light, because he has been so adamant about his desire to leave the club. And with Inter Milan now in the mix, he did say over the summer that it would need to be a step up for him to actually leave Tottenham. But Inter Milan, I wouldn't say it's a step up, but given that they're fighting for the league over in Italy this season, they're actually level on points with Juventus at the top of the table over there. I'm sure that would be something that would definitely attract him to the club, because the trophy is the one thing he's been missing from his time at Tottenham, and if he could go over and win something with Inter within 6 months, the thought of that, the draw of that is definitely going to be a lot. Now there are other reports saying that Daniel Levy has been talking to Florentino Perez of Real Madrid to try and force through a move on that side, but there's been nothing. There hasn't been anything from any reliable sources about that. And I guess we'll just have to wait and see where it goes with Christian Eriksen. If it will be recouping some bit of a transfer fee this window, it'll be good for us, but it is kind of looking increasingly more likely that it'll be either Inter Milan this window or he'll be going away on a free, next year. So, look, I'm not staying positive about it at all, and I'm not even sure I'd want him to stay if that was the case because of the way he's been over the last couple of years. But look, only time will tell how that's actually gonna work out. We have Rasmus saying Eriksen is forcing Mourinho's hand because he is their best player. And I don't think that's the case, to be honest, because Eriksen hasn't really been in his starting 11 at all. I think he's only started one game, which would have been that Norwich one before the new year. And it's good to see that Mourinho isn't giving him that game time, which would kind of indicate that his departure is imminent. But it's a good thing that he's not getting that time, even though he is a good player and he did really well for us against Norwich. There was a few games where he really impacted well. I think it was that one away to Wolves, actually getting that assist very late on for Jan Vertonghen, which of course won us the game. It's never been in question that he is a very talented footballer. He's technically gifted, and on his day he is one of the best players in the Premier League. But when he's at a team when you can see he doesn't really want to be there, it's kind of hard to get any bit frustrated if he does leave the club. And again, it does feel as though it will be imminent. I've seen a few people asking about Giovanni Lo Celso. And this is the big question around Tottenham in terms of incomings over this transfer window, because as I was saying in my Transfer Talk live stream on Friday, it's the Real Betis president first of all has said that he does expect Tottenham to activate a clause in the loan deal that would see us sign him for, I think, only 27 million in this transfer window. We'd be saving about 15 million from what we would have to pay if we left it until the summer. Now, the Betis president said he does expect Tottenham to activate that clause in this transfer window. They will be upset to see Giovanni Lo Celso go, but he's not entirely convinced that the player actually wants that move to be put through. I don't know if it's this early or if at all. Lo Celso has struggled for game time at the club, and when he has gotten game time, his form hasn't been the best. And you can't excuse that because, when you're coming to a new team, a new league, a completely new style of play, it's going to be really hard to acclimatise to that. And when your play time is being so interrupted by injuries and this change in manager and having to rotate when you get to such a hectic period that we do have in England over the Christmas, it's going to be incredibly difficult for him. And we certainly haven't seen the best from him yet, and we can say the same about Tanguy and Ndombele. But Lo Celso, whether or not that move is going to be made permanent this window is apparently down to Jose Mourinho, and according to some reports, he's not entirely convinced by the player just yet. So again, that's another one that's up in the air. But whether or not the Eriksen and Lo Celso situations will be linked, as in if Eriksen goes this window, we'll sign Lo Celso, but if he stays, we leave it till the summer, I don't know. It felt as though last summer Lo Celso wasn't being brought in as a replacement for Eriksen because there were other players that we were going after, particularly Paulo Dybala and Bruno Fernandes. So it did feel as though we were trying to bulk up and add a bit of depth in that midfield, I suppose, behind the striker. So I think they were kind of brought in to play together, and then if Eriksen went, we will get someone like Dybala or Fernandes. So I think it would be a step back if Eriksen did go and we kind of use Lo Celso as his replacement. But look, it's a new manager coming in. It's going to be a completely different setup at the club in terms of transfers. Straight away Mourinho said his title was head coach and not manager, which suggests he doesn't have any control over the transfers, but also this director of football that he's trying to bring in, Luis Campos from Lille. Again, I don't know where that one is at the moment. It was, when Mourinho was appointed, it seemed as though it was all but completed with that one. But Campos, who is known for his for being so good in the transfer market and discovering young players like Kylian Mbappe, Bernardo Silva, Benjamin Mendy, he is really good at that side of things. And with bringing in young players, it's really going to suit, I suppose, Tottenham's philosophy in bringing youth into the first team. But also with Daniel Levy's tight budget, bringing in young players to develop them and then sell them on is typically what Tottenham do. It's, I suppose, a new approach for Jose Mourinho. He has loved to bring in world-class players and kind of build his teams like that in order to win trophies. But this new Mourinho that he's talking about, this friendly one, it does seem as though youth is going to be something that he utilises a lot in his time at Tottenham. But whether or not he will be able to be as successful as a manager with these young players as he has been with building these £100 million teams, it'll be interesting to see how that one works out. So Matthew Hogg there asking any news about Max. I assume you mean Max Aarons. That's still kind of at the stage of just interest from Tottenham. Of course, the right back plays for Norwich. The talk is about £30 million, which for me is a lot of money for a right back who is unproven at Premier League level. He was one of the best players in the Championship last season playing for Norwich, but it's a massive step up. I haven't watched much of him this year, but he's a young right back. He loves attacking. He suits our style of play, but whether he's at the level that we need just yet, I wouldn't be too convinced by that. I'd be looking more towards the other right back we're interested in now, which is Nordi Mukiele from Rasenballsport Leipzig, and also the two that we were looking at in the summer being Yusuf Atal from Nice and El Cid Husay from Napoli. I think there certainly are a lot better options than Max Aarons out there, and especially if you're going to be paying £30 million, I don't think it would be much more than that to get in these players who are much more experienced at that level and are probably just better players given they have played just played more football than Max Aarons and with better teams as well. Let's welcome a few people, Brian McGlennon and Luke de Jong to the stream as well, watching from Brisbane in Netherlands. Now, I suppose looking a bit towards this game, and as I touched on a couple of minutes ago, Middlesbrough's recent form in the Championship has been absolutely outstanding. Their previous two games especially, they've won 2-0 away to both Preston and West Brom. Now, West Brom are one of the two runaway leaders in the Championship right now. Them and I think Leeds are something like 10 points ahead of the chasing pack. So for Middlesbrough to go there and win that game 2-0 is really impressive. And the other team they beat was Preston North End, who are also in around the mix for the playoffs. They've dropped to 10th since that, but it's really tight in there, only 4 points between 3rd and 10th. So Middlesbrough have really turned their form around. I wouldn't say they were in a relegation battle, but they were a bit worried there looking over their shoulders, but they're 10 points clear now, sitting 16th in the Championship. So I don't think the table tells the story of what we need to expect from today. They have been on outstanding form, winning their last 4 games after a small little blip there. Obviously, it's going to be a completely different story, them coming to play a Premier League team, but they're in really good form, and this isn't a game that we can take lightly. And I suppose the starting lineup there from Mourinho would let us know that he isn't taking this lightly at all, and he is trying to get this game done. As for what we're expecting from the game, again, obviously the lineup plays a big part of it. It's kind of hard to see anything other than I suppose a one-sided game in our favour. What we've been lacking recently has been that getting the ball forward quickly in possession. We've been really good at that long ball forward. Toby Alderweireld especially, we know he has that ability to pick out these 50, 60, 70 yard passes, and Dele Alli is a player who has certainly benefited from that over the last couple of weeks. But what we need to get back to is what we were so good at when we were up challenging for those league titles for the couple of seasons, and it's getting the ball forward, playing football, because look at the players who've been playing around midfield this season. Eric Dyer, Harry Winks, maybe not Tanguy Ndombele as much, but they haven't been too enthusiastic in terms of getting the ball forward. They've been playing the simple pass, playing it back. And I'm a big fan of Harry Winks, but he's someone who's really disappointed me this season. He's never been looking for those forward passes, and it comes back to the thing that everyone is saying is our form fell away when Moussa Dembele left to go to China, and he was always that player who would grab the ball in the middle of the park and he'd carry it forward, he'd make those passes if he had to, but he also had the ability to dribble past players, and that just seems to be what we're lacking in the team at the moment. So if we can get that, keep a lot of possession and build forward properly rather than trying to catch out a team like Middlesbrough, because they are a Championship team. They're going to be a lot better dealing with those high balls than you would expect Premier League teams to be, because Championship is a much more physical league rather than the footballing side of the Premier League. Now Matthew Hogg asking for score prediction. I have to assume we're going to win this one. I'll go for maybe a 2 or 3-1, because we're really, really bad defensively. It's interesting looking at the 3 at the back, or potentially 5 at the back. I imagine it would be 3 if you're going to approach this game in a more attacking format. It's been quite a while since Dyer played in centre back, but I suppose when he did play in centre back, he was pretty decent there. So it'll be interesting to see how that one works out, and if it is something that Mourinho would want to bring into the Premier League in the coming weeks, because when Mourinho first came in, it was Serge Aurier who was the player who kind of benefited a lot when he's being pushed on almost into a right wing position with the left back sitting in and making it a 3 at the back. But that's kind of faded in the last couple of weeks, with Aurier being forced back a bit more. You're going to, particularly that game when we played Chelsea at White Hart Lane, you had, when they did play the 3-4-3, they had Marcus Alonso playing in a left wing role with Willian ahead of him, and because they had 2 players in such an advanced role there, Aurier was forced back the whole game, and Chelsea caused us a lot of problems down that left side because of that, because he just doesn't have the defensive. He's not a defender, he's a more attacking footballer. And we're looking at the team that he came up in and where he did really make a name for himself. It was PSG over in the French league, and they're not forced to do much defending because they're a really good team in a really poor league. So I suppose his flaws weren't as evident playing in a team like that. But now we really do need to push him on, because he's not a defender, and this three at the back will really allow him to do that. He will defend when he's required to do so. But if the three at the back is something we bring in the Premier League, it'll certainly sort those problems of the fullbacks, because even before this season, before Davis got injured and before Rose, I know he's injured at the moment, but he has been in and out of the team quite a bit. Excuse me. The fullbacks was something we were looking at over the summer. Of course, with Kieran Trippier leaving for Atletico Madrid, we wanted to sign in some. We didn't get any, and our fears have been realised with the really weak fullback positions. I think we were relatively surprised with how weak we've been in defence centrally this season, with Alderweireld and Vertonghen just not looking like themselves at all. But yeah, it's an interesting formation, and certainly something that we may actually see in the league in the coming weeks. And it is all down to Mourinho actually finding his best team, because he certainly hasn't found it yet. We've been really disappointing. Just one sec now. We've been really disappointing in the league, and I wouldn't say he doesn't have a plan B, but what he's been trying to do so far it hasn't really worked out for us, unfortunately. And a lot of that can be put down to the players, because the level of performance from them has absolutely not been good enough. And it was the same under Pochettino, so you can't blame the manager at all at this stage. It is the players. They're not playing for the badge. They don't seem to care anymore, and that does come back to needing to invest in the team and needing to bring in new players, which just isn't happening at the moment. Darren Frostwick saying, strong team versus Borough, looks like Jose not messing about, resting good players, good move, go for the cup. And 1991 last time we won the FA Cup, 2008 last time we won any trophy. It's about time we went for something like this, and I think that would have been a lot of Daniel Levy's thinking when he did bring in Mourinho, because he's a winner. He wins trophies, that's what he does. And an early statement here in this one, looking to win the FA Cup. Spurs fans saying Aurier is getting a red card. I suppose that worry is always there when Aurier is playing, but it's anybody's guess. Alexander Hilton asking, do we need a new goalkeeper? I think it wouldn't be the biggest worry that we have at the moment. I think first of all we need to fix the defence. Bringing in some centre backs is going to be really, really important for us, and full backs, as I've been saying. I saw someone asking there about the Koulibaly transfer, Cameron Williams. I'm that's not one I'm getting excited about just yet. He has been valued at, I think, £120 million by Napoli. They do seem more likely to be holding on to him until the summer. Now they are of course interested in Jan Vertonghen, and there's been a few people asking about a swap deal for Vertonghen and Koulibaly, but it'll cost Tottenham a lot of money to do that, because of course Jan Vertonghen, a 32-year-old centre back who's probably past his best right now. Koulibaly, it could be Vertonghen and 80, 90, 100 million as well, because only 6 months left on Vertonghen's contract. Now there is a Twitter page called All Things Spurs, who they're one of these in the knows, and you can never really trust these, but this page was really accurate over the transfer window. They correctly predicted the thing about Giovanni Lo Celso as being a loan deal with an obligation or option to buy rather than a straight out purchase. There's also a few things with Paulo Dybala they were on the button for, and it's one of those that I am kind of keeping a close eye on, because obviously not believing everything that comes through there. And just quickly there, we got a now it's got a super chat from Spurs fan. Thanks a million for that. Excuse me. So this Twitter page has said, talking a lot about our transfers and our targets right now. They said also making advancements with Koulibaly. The money is there, just up to Mourinho to convince Levy to lump it on a 28-year-old centre back. Now again, definitely have to take that with a pinch of salt. But some suggestion there that maybe there is the money there for this deal, and it's just all about Mourinho convincing Daniel Levy to actually get that done. Alexander Hilton saying Koulibaly is 80 million at 120 million. Look, again, it's all down to whatever reports you read, because every different outlet is going to have different news, are going to have different sources, and none of them are just going to make things up. I think Sky Sports is the one where I saw it was £120 million, and I think for me, in terms of transfers, they would be the most reliable. Even though of course they get things wrong, everyone gets things wrong, but I wouldn't be getting too excited about that Koulibaly transfer just yet. Matthew Hodgson get a goalkeeper in the summer, which was the initial question. Lloris, I think we can all agree he is past it. He is still he's still a really good goalkeeper, but he's really prone to errors, and unfortunately, it does seem like Gazaniga is becoming that sort of player as well, because it's I don't know what it is, because there are a lot of goalkeepers right now at the moment who are really prone to errors. When you look at David De Gea from Manchester United, who would be seen as one of the best goalkeepers in the world, and he's making a lot of mistakes. He did a lot towards the end of last season, not as much this season, but only a couple of weeks ago against Watford he did. Bernd Leno at Arsenal, I think, has had the most errors leading to goals of any player in the Premier League since the start of last season when he joined. He's up there at 7, I think. Kepa for Chelsea, he hasn't been the worst for it, but he has done it a few times, and it just seems to be a thing that it's just happening now for a lot of goalkeepers, and we have to be really careful when we are signing one, because a goalkeeper coming into the Premier League, it's a very different league to any other league. You've players like Ederson and Alisson who came in and kind of straight away they did what they needed to do. But if you look at David De Gea, when he came in, it took him 2-3 years to really get to his best. Lloris, when he came into us, he didn't even get a start. He didn't get an appearance for 3 or 4 months. So it is a really difficult thing to do, and there aren't many goalkeepers in the Premier League right now that I think would be a good signing for us, and a worthwhile signing, as in buying them to play ahead of Gazaniga, because it does feel as though Lloris's time at the club is coming to an end. No one really knows how he's gonna react to coming back from this injury now. But we'll see what happens. Really want to ask him, what do you think about taking Fellaini as a holding midfielder for us? Jay's were saying don't utter that name. I don't want him at all, and it doesn't seem as though it is one that will happen. Fellaini was asked about this. I think he's playing in China at the moment, and he was asked about it. And he said he is in contact with Jose Mourinho, but it's not really a move that's going to happen. It's not likely at all. He basically said no. Jace was saying Sheffield United's goalkeeper is good. Their goalkeeper Dean Henderson is actually on loan from Manchester United, and I can't imagine they'd sell a keeper as good as him. And if they did, if he was going to leave, it would probably be to make it permanent at Sheffield United. But he's only on loan there, and I'm not sure if United would be willing to sell to a top 6 rival. It does seem as though Tottenham are the only team who actually do that. So I wouldn't say Dean Henderson is a realistic signing, unfortunately. Matthew Hogg saying I think Onana or Pickford in the summer. Onana is a name that does keep cropping up, as do a lot of these Ajax players. Unsurprising, really, given the really good run they had in the Champions League last year. But Onana, he's someone who did really impress. He's still only 23 years of age, but I suppose in terms of the worries that you might have for a goalkeeper coming to the Premier League, he certainly has the physicality. He's a really big, strong player. He's able to play with the ball. He's able to pass it out from the back, which is typically what Ajax do. So I suppose he would fall into a lot of the categories that we are looking for. And if it was a deal that did get done, I'd be really excited about it. I'm, to be honest, having a clue in what they'd be looking for in terms of a transfer fee. But he is one that definitely, I imagine if Tottenham are looking for a goalkeeper, if any team in Europe are looking for a goalkeeper, he would definitely be at the top of their list. Anthony Gonzalez saying, do you think Kane has passed it? Not at all. I suppose his goal scoring has kind of died down over the last season or two, but it's no coincidence that has come with kind of in line with the form of the entire team falling down. He's not getting as much service. The ball isn't making it through midfield as quickly, and he does have to drop back quite a bit in order to try and pull those strings himself. And we have seen a major development in his passing game over the last couple of years as well. All these compilations of him pinging these 40-50 yards passes. He's certainly not past his best. I think just as he gets older, it's kind of the typical I suppose evolution of a player that his style of play does change. And if you're looking at the best strikers that we've had in the Premier League recently, Wayne Rooney would be the main example for me. As he did get older, he does typically start to drop back, and I know Harry Kane is nowhere near that age where he will have to think of changing his position, but it is just the typical evolution of a striker. And Harry Kane, 26 now, he is getting into his prime. 27, 28, 29 is where you'd expect him to score the most of his goals. Regan saying Kane has been over generous by staying with Tottenham. Another star player would have jumped ship long ago, and I suppose that just brings it back to his loyalty and the bond within that team that is there. Jay Spurs saying I think we do not have the midfielders to play a 4-2-3-1, and unfortunately I suppose that has kind of become evident over this season especially. Moussa Dembele was the kind of key part of that formation. When we did play it, he was the one who who kind of control things in there. He'd hold things together defensively, and he'd also pull the strings going forward. So maybe we don't have the midfielders, but we have invested quite a bit in that position, and it's just about developing the players that we do have now. Lewis, the game is starting at 1 minute past 2 today. Jay Spurs, none of our defensive midfielders are good enough, which unfortunately does seem to be true at the moment. Now, of course, only about half an hour to kick off. Make sure to put your score predictions in the live chat there, and we'll run through a few of those, kind of see what the general feeling in the camp is at the moment. As I said, I'm going to go for a 2 or 3-1 victory, because I can't see us keeping a clean sheet. That just doesn't seem to happen us anymore. But this is certainly a game that we should win, and with the strong lineup that we have gone with, I'd be really concerned if we couldn't beat a team like Middlesbrough. And look, it is the FA Cup third round, and there are always some upsets in that. Looking at the results from yesterday, I suppose the main one would be Watford throwing away a 3-goal lead against Tranmere. Tranmere, of course, in the League 2 came from 3-0 down, and an exceptional turnaround from them. Also looking at Sheffield Wednesday winning away to Brighton, another Championship Premier League upset there. Fulham beating Villa as well, but the majority of the games did go the way you'd expect. You're looking at Burnley coming out on top against Peterborough. You've Norwich also winning, Southampton beating Huddersfield, Bournemouth beating Luton, City beating Port Vale, Leicester beating Wigan. There hasn't been too many upsets, but there are definitely a few games today that you can kind of expect an upset from. This one, maybe not expect, but it could happen. This one especially. You've Chelsea playing Nottingham Forest, Gillingham against West Ham. West Ham have been really poor in these competitions over the last few years, quite often losing out to smaller teams. So it'll be interesting to see how those ones go. And looking at the score predictions, Matthew Hogg saying 4-2 to Tottenham. Gaming is saying 3-1 to Tottenham. Darren saying a 2-1 win as well. Son scoring both of our goals. And it's great to see him back in the starting 11 as well, actually, just serving his 3-game ban. Look, that's all we have time for in the stream today. A little over half an hour to kick off now, and look, hopefully it is one that we can get over the line. This is certainly a trophy that we should be pushing to win this season. Given our form, I wouldn't say it's likely that we will win it, but with Mourinho in charge, you never really know what's going to happen. Thank you to everyone who has joined me for the stream. If you're new to the channel, again, please don't forget to subscribe down below for more of these live streams and Transfer Talk feature I'm doing this month as well. If you have enjoyed the stream, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and as always, thanks for watching.